Hello and welcome to Nightline. I'm Brendan Wong. The headlines. Pasir Gudang air pollution, Department of Environment issues 37 compounds and 6 notices against 38 factories. And Indonesian court upholds the re-election of President Joko Widodo. We begin our bulletin with this story from abroad. An Indonesian court has unanimously upheld the re-election of President Joko Widodo, rejecting a petition by his challenger disputing the official result and ending months of political uncertainty in the world's third largest democracy. The Constitutional Court in Jakarta on Thursday cited a lack of evidence and dismissed Prabowo Subianto's appeal against the General Elections Commission, declaring Jokowi, as Widodo is known, the winner of April 17 election. The court's Chief Justice Anwar Usman declared the finding that Jokowi was the winner of the April 17 election legal. Subianto, who challenged Jokowi in a bitterly contested election, had earlier repeatedly claimed victory, alleging irregularities in the polls. The former general initiated the legal case, seeking the disqualification of Jokowi and a fresh vote. President Jokowi, in an immediate response, called for unity in the country. Jokowi, who reiterated that he and running mate Ma'ruf Amin would be the president and vice president of all Indonesians and not just for those who voted for them. Indonesian President challenger Prabowo Subianto, meanwhile, said though the results were very disappointing, he accepted the decision of the Constitutional Court and urged his supporters to stay calm. He said following the result, he will dutifully follow Indonesia's 1945 constitution and the applicable law in the country. The government will introduce an estate farming model to increase the income of smallholders in rural areas. Prime Minister Tun Dr Mahathir Mohamad said through the model, land belongings to smallholders would be merged and managed professionally like an estate to increase agriculture produce.
Kita perlu jadikan smallholders ini sebagai estate, cantumkan mereka. Ini bukan termasuk padi, tanaman padi, getah dan kelapa sawit. Kita boleh buat macam itu. Kita akan laksanakan, maybe kita akan pilih satu kawasan untuk dijadikan contoh, model kepada yang lain.
The Prime Minister said this after launching the rural development policy in Putrajaya on Thursday. He also suggested that estates involving the smallholders' land be used to carry out mixed farming to reduce dependence on one crop, as was being practiced in oil palm and rubber estates. By doing so, they would have bigger capital and be able to hire professionals to manage their estates so that they could reap higher returns and free themselves from the clutches of poverty. And at the same event, Tun Dr Mahathir assured that the government would look into any dissatisfaction voiced by members of the public, but maintained that it cannot please everyone. He said this in response to concerns raised by families of missing Pastor Raymond Kaur and activist Amri Chekmat over the appointment of certain individuals in the 6-member task force to investigate the case.
Well, we cannot please everybody, but some people will be happy. Some people will not be happy. I cannot guarantee satisfaction for 100% of the people involved.
But do you think that you don't have any issues that the task force can actually do their job to look into?
Yeah, we look into any complaints made, we will look into and improve, tambah baik.
On Wednesday, Home Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin had announced the task force members headed by former High Court Judge Dato Abdul Rahim Uda. The missing duo's families had complained against the appointment of the task force members, including former Police Legal Division Chief Dato Mokhtar Muhammad Noor, who was previously part of the team representing the police at the Human Rights Commission of Malaysia Suhakam inquiry. It was reported that the findings by Suharkam in April revealed that there was direct involvement of the police in the disappearances of the duo, causing worries and concerns among the public. Speaking on another matter, Tun Dr Mahathir said Parti Pribumi Bersatu Malaysia Bersatu will not postpone its first ever elections, which must be held this year. The Prime Minister, who is also the party's chairman, said the election must be held as appointed leaders are now running the party.
Kita berpendapat bahawa amat penting kita mengadakan pilihan lebih awal kerana kita dapati bahawa pentadbiran sekarang ini berasas kepada pemimpin yang dilantik kadang-kadang tidak berjaya untuk mengembangkan parti.
He was responding to a question on a news portal report on Thursday that Bersatu is considering postponing its first ever election to resolve the registration of several branches. The report said the party elections have to be postponed to ensure that all branches are registered in compliance with the Societies Act 1966. The need to loosen borrowing procedures, tax matters and the hiring of foreign workers are among the main issues to be highlighted in the preparation for the 2020 budget. However, Finance Minister Lim Guan Eng urged all parties to understand that the financial constraints of the government to fill the loss of 150 billion ringgit due to issues related to One Malaysia Development Berhad, 1MDB, Tabung Haji and Felda.
This huge financial constraint of 150 billion ringgit. But we have managed, despite abolishing the GST to replace by the SST, the government of Malaysia has not gone bankrupt. We are still able to afford to pay our civil servants and carry out development to ensure that economic growth is at a sustainable place.
He said this during the Budget Consultative Council 2020 meeting on Thursday. Malaysia, he said, also expects its economy to expand by close to 5% this year amid rising investments and ease its fiscal deficit to below 3% of GDP by 2021. At the same event, Lim said the government is currently designing a cost of living index to complement the existing consumer price index, CPI. Lim said unlike the CPI, which tracks the general change in consumer prices, all new index would determine the minimum living cost required for a person to live comfortably.
But wage growth is just as crucial as managing living costs. There is little comfort to take from GDP growth if our wages do not increase as well. To have higher growth, the only sustainable way of doing so is to raise our productivity.
The minister also said that the government was currently evaluating and formulating a new plan to get 500,000 young Malaysians work through multiple programs. He added that this was important since the youth unemployment rate has risen by 10.9% in 2018 from 9.9% in 2011. These rates are considerably higher than the 3.4% national unemployment rate. Malaysia's business outlook is looking positive in the near future, with 80% of the businesses expecting growth in the next 1 or 2 years. According to the latest survey by HSBC, 16% of exporters expect their businesses to grow over 5% during the period, and a further 51% expecting a 3 to 5% increase. In a statement on Thursday, the bank said local companies expected that growth would be driven by an increasing or stable customer base and the availability of quality suppliers and raw materials. Of these, increasing sustainability demands at 30% is considerably above the global average of 22%. The survey said although almost all of Malaysian businesses feel that innovation is important, they also see 3 key barriers which are similar to those seen globally, namely cost, skill shortage and uncertain return on investment. By improving productivity and integrating technologies into their business models, the bank said companies in Malaysia can improve the quality of their goods and services and better meet the needs and expectations of the evolving customer base. Compared to other markets in ASEAN, it said Malaysia scores the highest when it comes to bringing skills and experience into the business. The survey report surveyed over 2,500 businesses with a turnover of $5 million and above from 14 key markets globally, including 200 from Malaysia. The Department of Environment has issued 37 compounds and 6 notices against 38 factories in Pasir Gudang, Johor for various offences under the Environmental Quality Act. The department has been going around the district conducting checks on factories following the recent air pollution incident.
Sehingga kini pihak JAS telah mengambil tindakan penjejakan dan penyiasatan kepada 38 premis industri bagi kesalahan-kesalahan di bawah Akta Kualiti Alam Sekeliling 1974 dengan tindakan tegas telah diambil merangkumi buangan terjadual 27 kompaun, effluent perindustrian 10 kompaun, bilangan notis arahan 3 notis, petah tahan operasi 3 arahan.
Khuzan also said police are still conducting 24-hour roadblocks at Pasir Gudang exit points to stop any attempt to bring out toxic waste from the district. He said there was no new hospital admission as at noon, and the number of patients being hospitalized remained at 4, aged between 13 and 17. As for the 111 schools in Pasir Gudang ordered closed, the state government will make an announcement on its decision on Saturday. Meanwhile, Johor State Education Department has provided alternative learning material to school children in Pasir Gudang who are affected by the contamination there so that their studies will go on as usual. Its director, Azman Adnan, said teachers had provided the alternative materials through WhatsApp and Telegram applications, email, virtual learning environment and EduWeb TV. In a statement on Thursday, Azman said learning materials such as textbooks, exercise books and the existing modules are also used to continue the learning process outside the school sessions. He added parents and guardians are encouraged to monitor and guide the students during the time the schools are closed so that they can continue their studies at home. Azman added that the department had also taken steps to ensure that schools draw up a replacement schedule so that the allocated annual instructional time is fulfilled. He was commenting on the worries of parents that the studies of their children who will be sitting for exams this year would be affected by the incident in Pasir Gudang. The second list of individuals and entities involved in the forthcoming civil forfeiture action by the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission MACC will be released within 2 weeks. MACC Deputy Chief Commissioner Datuk Sri Azam Baki said the list of respondents was extensive. As such, his team needed time to undertake detailed checks concerning witnesses and the location of assets. Datuk Sri Azam in a statement on Thursday said the MACC will discuss with investigators and the Attorney General's office in coming up with the list. He said legal action will be taken against these entities and individuals when possible. Datuk Sri Azam declined to give an estimate of the number of individuals and entities who are due to be summoned in the next civil forfeiture application. He, however, urged all those who had received funds from 1MDB to return the money. On June 19th, the MACC filed a civil forfeiture suit against 41 individuals and entities to recover 1MDB funds worth 270 million ringgit. Among the 41 are political parties UMNO, Parti Bersatu Rakyat Sabah and MCA, and organisations such as Pertubuhan Kebajikan Dakwah Islamiyah Malaysia. Datuk Sri Ahmad Zahid Hamidi on Thursday claimed trial at the Shah Alam Sessions Court to the remaining 33 corruption charges over the Home Ministry's contract for the foreign visa system. The former Deputy Prime Minister was accused of receiving more than 42.7 million ringgit in bribes from Ultra Kirana Sendirian Berhad. The money was said to be an inducement for Datuk Sri Zahid to extend the contract of the company which is handling the government's overseas visa system, VLN, and one-stop centre in China. He was accused of receiving the money at Country Heights, Kajang between October 2014 and July 2017. Datuk Sri Zahid was also accused under the Penal Code of receiving as a public servant something of value from persons whom he knew to have interest in a business transaction with his then ministry. If found guilty of corruption under the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission Act, he faces a maximum jail term of 20 years and a fine of not less than 5 times the amount of bribe received. Datuk Sri Zahid previously claimed trial to 47 charges filed against him between November and February for alleged criminal breach of trust involving his family-run foundation, Yayasan Akal Budi, money laundering, as well as accepting bribes for various projects during his tenure in the Home Ministry. Singapore Airlines and Malaysia Airlines have signed a preliminary agreement to explore a wide-ranging strategic partnership that could include more code shares as well as cargo and aircraft maintenance. According to both companies, the cooperation between the airlines, which split out from Malaysia Singapore Airlines in 1972, comes amid financial trouble at Malaysia Airlines. The airline, in a joint statement on Thursday, said the new cooperation could include a significant expansion of code-share flights beyond Malaysia-Singapore routes, as well as enhancements on the frequent flyer program front. The carrier said they intended for a formal agreement to be finalized in the coming months, subject to regulatory approvals, and that it would include Singapore Airlines subsidiaries Silk Air and Scoot, as well as Malaysia Airlines' Firefly arm. CAPA's Centre for Aviation Chief Analyst Brandon Sobey said the stronger partnership would allow Singapore Airlines to increase its presence in the strategically important Malaysian market and help Malaysia Airlines compete more effectively against rivals like the AirAsia Group. The head of Malaysian aviation consultancy Endow Analytics, Shuko Yusof, meanwhile said between the Malaysia Airlines deal and a recent joint venture agreement with Japan Airlines, there appeared to be a little chance the government would sell its national carrier. Prime Minister Tun Dr Mahathir Mohamad in March said the government is considering whether to shut, sell or refinance the loss-making national carrier. Australian MH17 families reach settlement with Malaysia Airlines. The details after the breather. Welcome back. 5 Australian families who were part of the class action against Malaysia Airlines after the deaths of their loved ones on flight MH17 have reached a confidential out-of-court settlement with the airline. An 8-day hearing was due to begin at the Federal Court in Sydney on Wednesday, but prior to that hearing, lawyers for both sides agreed to settle the case. The settlement came ahead of next month's 5th anniversary of the downing of MH17 over eastern Ukraine. At a short hearing on Wednesday, the terms of the settlement were approved by Justice Nee Param, who congratulated the parties on reaching an agreement. 5 families who lost 7 loved ones between them will benefit from the class action settlement. The court order means details of the class action payout figure reached must remain confidential. Malaysia Airlines issued a statement saying it was pleased the settlement had been reached and approved by the federal court. The national carrier said in order to maintain respect of all parties, the details of these settlements shall remain confidential and are subject to the court's confidentiality orders. In Kedah, a group of plantation workers had a rude shock when they stumbled upon the body of a man in a pool of blood by the roadside near Jalan Ladang Jentayu, Bukit Selambau in Sungai Petani. Kuala Muda District Police Chief ACP Adzli Abu Shah said preliminary investigations found that the 30-year-old victim was believed to have been hit in the head and was stabbed in his arm and face. Police claimed that the victim, believed to be a foreigner, was murdered at another location before being dumped near the oil palm plantation where he was found. The case is being investigated under Section 302 of the Penal Code for murder. In Selangor, a motorcyclist cheated death when he was hit by a lorry and dragged for 20 meters at the Damansara Puchong Highway, LDP, on Thursday. The victim in his 30s sustained serious injury on his leg in the 1:15 p.m. incident. He was taken to the Serdang Hospital for treatment, and a probe into the incident is being conducted under the Road Transport Act 1987. In Kuala Lumpur, 3 individuals, including a well-known comedian, were arrested on Thursday following a quarrel at a hotel in Taman Maluri, Cheras last Tuesday. Cheras District Police Chief ACP Muhammad Moksin Muhammad Zon said all 3 tested positive for drugs. The 41-year-old comedian, who had 4 previous records for drugs, tested positive for ganja, while the other 2 tested positive for methamphetamine. It is also learned that they were also wanted for a case in Hulu Klang, Selangor. Coming up after the break, twin suicide attacks rock Tunisia. On to the foreign front. Two suicide bombers struck security forces in quick succession on Thursday in the Tunisian capital, killing at least one and wounding several others. According to local authorities, the first attack targeted a police patrol on Shah de Gaulle Street in central Tunis at 10:50 a.m. local time. A policeman died from his injuries, while another was injured, along with 3 civilians in the first blast. The second attack then took place 10 minutes later at a police building in the city, wounding 4 policemen. So far, no group has claimed responsibility for the attacks. More than 5,000 people have been evacuated over the past 24 hours after a volcanic eruption in the West New Britain province of New Papua New Guinea. The eruption also sent a plume of ash 19 kilometers into the sky. According to local officials, Mount Ulawun began spewing lava and smoke high into the air at 7 a.m. local time on Wednesday, with rumbling and booming noises heard throughout the day, before an eruption warning was issued, prompting an evacuation. National airline Air New Guinea cancelled all flights into Hoskins Airport in Kimber for an indefinite period, while initial reports from the Provincial Disaster Committee indicated that lava flows had cut off the New Britain Highway in 3 different locations. The last time Mount Ulawun erupted on such a scale was back in May 2001. And that sports item wraps up Nightline this time around. Before we leave, let's take a look at the highlights of the Media Prima Berhad News and Current Affairs Department's annual Hari Raya Open House. With that, I'm Brandon Wong. Thank you for watching.